Hello, this is Captain Jim for the Monopoly Project. We're here on Val Vista Lakes. We're here on the Monopoly Project yacht. Every successful real estate investor has a yacht, and this is the Monopoly Project yacht. We are here to do our floating book reviews. Unfortunately, it's the Bikini Girls' Day off, so you just have me here on the lake today. And today we have 5 books. We've had actually quite a bit of rain here. It's December 5th. It rained a lot on Saturday. Sunday was a little. Today's Monday. And we've got so much water in the retention things that kids are riding their bicycles through it. And so I'll splice that in here now so that you can see the kids doing kid stuff, riding bicycles through puddles. Anyway, like I said, you can see now the sun's in my eyes. I'm headed west, and it is about 4 in the afternoon. So we have 5 books, just in no particular order. The Seeds of War by Alaric Bond. This is the 14th book in the series, and you already know what I'm going to say about it. I loved it, and I did love it. I think he has one more. This one's 277 pages, but it describes him, the Captain King, now off the United States, and he makes friends with a United States guy who he almost has to fight because this is just before the War of 1812. Number 2 is Churchill, A Drinking Life by Jin Sanders. Yes, his first name is Jin, and Roxanne Langer. 155 pages, hardback. It's just a little book about what Churchill actually drank and his habits and such. It's actually a lot of interesting stuff, so we'll get into that. Number 3 is The Philosophy of Modern Song by Bob Dylan. It's a bunch of chapters about songs, some really well known, some I'd never heard of, that I guess were in his formative years. And you can see the sun's right in my eyes and I cannot see anything. And so he goes through them, and it's more a reflection on Dylan than it is on the songs. And he's got some it's pretty weird thoughts for Dylan. But of course he's in his 70s now, or maybe even 80, so he's old now, so he can express non-heterodox thoughts. The other book is The Boy in Abruzzo, 273 pages by Louis Rosati. I picked that up on the airport on the way to Bakersfield last week when we were closing on our 36-unit assisted living facility, and read it on the plane. Great book. And finally, the 5th book is The Resurrected Jesus, 355 pages by David Limbaugh and Kristen Limbaugh Bloom. Kristen is Rush Limbaugh's daughter. David, of course, is his brother. They talk about the New Testament and go through some of the books and what they thought of them. So anyway, those are our 5 books for December, so we'll get right to it. Okay, this is Jim. I'm back here on Val Vista Lakes doing the floating book reviews. Of course, it's the Bikini Girls' Day off today, so you just have me, and we're on our 5th and last book. I am slowly crawling home. If you heard my earlier reviews, my boat died on my 3rd review. We had some problems before. The batteries aren't really fully charged because I left it unplugged a week ago when we went off to Bakersfield to close escrow on our latest deal, which is a 36-unit assisted living facility. Our son-in-law, future son-in-law, Jonathan, is going to take it over. You saw Jonathan wrote a couple articles for the Monopoly Project if you want to see what he has to say. But anyway, John's going to run it, have his family having a background in it, and so we feel very confident that's going to work. And so today we're going to do our last book, which is The Philosophy of Modern Song by Bob Dylan. Of course, the famous Bob Dylan, who wrote a lot of songs and is still alive and still singing himself. It's a really interesting book, and it's purportedly a philosophy of modern song. I don't think it's really a philosophy of modern song. It's we got a kayaker. It's a series of reviews of, I don't know, there must be 2 or 3, 4 dozen books, and some songs that he reviews in 1, 2, or 3 pages. He reviews them. He gives his thoughts about what they mean. There's some really interesting history for each one, both in the immediate sense of when it was written, where, who, what, and why, but also of the culture that was going on at that time. And obviously the songs are mostly from the 80s and back. And so it's an interesting collection of songs. Some of them I had never heard of, and obviously they were foundational to Dylan and his career and his songwriting and singing. And it's less about the philosophy of modern song than the philosophy of Bob Dylan. It's the kind of book where you can pick it up knowing what I just said, you can pick it up and go in and read, you know, one chapter in the middle or anywhere. You don't need to know what came before or what came after. We're going under the bridge of Lakeside Drive that connects the North and South Lake of Val Vista Lakes. So anyway, I really recommend it. It's got some really weird stuff in it. At times, Dylan, who has been very free-spoken, can come off as misogynistic, which some people have said that about some of his songs if you've listened to some of his songs. But anyway, I do recommend it. It's like I said, it's interesting. It's got a lot of interesting old-timey photographs, you know, like this. And it's got, you know, like, I think it talks about Richard Nixon and a bunch of people like that, and not in a political sense, but in a cultural sense. And so I definitely recommend the book. And it's the other books, usually when I'm done with them, I lend them to the Val Vista Library or now to another library where I give them. This one I may just keep and peruse at leisure for a little while, because there are some songs in here. Like I said, some of the songs I've heard of. Not Blue Suede Shoes, I think it's in there, but and so I'm real familiar with them. The other ones I've never heard of, and so it's sort of interesting to see what is. And I actually, when I started reading it for the first 3 or 4 books, I actually, before I read that chapter, I pulled up the song in the recording that he mentioned, and I listened to the song, and actually it was very useful, because there was something useful in each song. You know, like I said, several of them, especially the beginning ones, I had never heard of. And so I guess, what's the first one? Detroit City by Bobby Bare, Pump It Up, Without a Song, Take Me From This Garden of Evil. So those are all songs I'd actually never heard of, and when I listened to them, I understood why they were good. You know, they weren't. And then, of course, Tutti Frutti by Little Richard, I know that one. El Paso, you know, another famous one. Witchy Woman, Long Tall Sally, you know, those are all really well known. But anyway, so I do recommend it. It's, you know, again, it's, I guess a common theme in a lot of the books I recommend or read myself is it has a history component where there's some element of history in it. Certainly in the ones we talked about, I think every one of them had some history in it. I would definitely recommend it. So anyway, so it looks like I'm slowly going back. I don't have to paddle. I don't have to fire up the generator. And I'm slowly drifting back home. Actually, I'm under power. You can see how slow I'm going. But the good thing is I don't have to paddle. And I will make it home. So anyway, so this is Jim for the Monopoly Project Floating Book Reviews, signing off, and we'll see you next month.